Hi, how's it going? There are 5 of you who will be receiving a link to this video. I know the 5 of you that there are, and this is a private video. Nobody else on the internet will be able to see it, so it's not something that's going to be publicly accessible unless you decide to share the link. So to start off, I just want to ask you to just watch this video. Just let it play, watch this video. This is with you specifically in mind. And what this video is just it's a plea. I'm pleading with you, and I'm asking you to please consider what I have to say. Whatever your decision is afterwards, fine, whatever. But I am asking you to seriously, internally consider what I have to say here. And the reason why I'm asking this is that I have given upward from 25 years of my life to an ideal. And it's an ideal that I gave my life to because I was raised in it, and I was exposed to it through friends and family, and that's a lot of time. You know, I can't really say that we only live once. As far as I know, as far as I am aware, we only live once, and to have had 20 years of my life completely devoted to something that I am now 100% sure is not the truth is a bit discouraging. And whether or not you believe that it's true, whether or not it's true, according to what you believe, it isn't the point. The point is that there are not just small problems with it, but major problems. And I have to get this off my back because I have been ceaselessly doing research. And every single piece of information I come across, I objectively look at the information. I'll look at something on one website and I'll go, I wonder if that's true. Then I'll look at another website and I'll do my research. I'll look at the references and I'll go to LDS.org and see what they have to say about it. And I look at the arguments, and I at first it was an extremely objective point of view because I wasn't sure. And I'm making this video to appeal to your desire to know truth. Now, I just finished watching a debate between several people. There's a couple internet, YouTube atheist promoters, and there's many Christian apologists. One is a man named Eric Hovind. He's a heavy Christian apologist, and another man named Cy 10 Rugenkott. And I'm listening to this debate that they're having. And Cy's premise is that God has revealed himself to Cy through personal revelation in such a way that Cy knows for absolute certainty, no exceptions, that God exists, and that Jesus is a Christ, and that any revelation he receives from his God is pure truth. Let's consider the gravity of what this means right now. He is claiming to be able to receive personal revelation from God that has dictated to him absolute truth, and that he will not at all give way to the possibility that he was wrong. The atheists will. They'll be like, we admit that we could be wrong. That's what science is about. We learn, we find out where we're wrong, and we make corrections. We continue to learn and find out where we're wrong, where we've made mistakes, and we correct. We could be wrong about tons of things. We could be wrong about Krishna being the God. We could be wrong about Buddhism. We could be wrong about a spiritual reality altogether. We could be wrong about the fact that this is even a real universe. This could be simulated. But Sai, his argument is that he knows for sure that he is true. No question about it. God has revealed to him in such a way that he knows without a doubt that what he believes is true. This immediately calls you guys into question. What he's saying is, him and his faith, he knows for sure. He will not admit that there is a possibility that he could be wrong, because God has revealed it to him in such a way that he knows that what he believes is correct. Which means, if that is true, then that means that the LDS church is false, because what God has revealed to him is that him and his faith is correct, and that all other churches are false. Now, let's go a step further. George Harrison had a personal relationship with Krishna. And Krishna had revealed to him truths in such a way that that he knows for sure that they are absolute truths revealed to him directly from the God Krishna. With just as much conviction as you have, with just as much conviction as Sai 10 has, with just as much conviction as anybody who says that they have had any revelation from any other source that what they believe is true. Sir Isaac Newton claimed to have the absolute direct revelatory experience from God, and was able to read the Bible and read it in its absolute pure true form. And he even started retranslating it. Now, his translation is completely separate and different from what most Christians believe. And on top of that, because of his ability to know direct truth from God and know in such a way that he could not be wrong whatsoever, God revealed to him that Jesus Christ was not the Savior, that Jesus was just a prophet. This is a revelation Isaac Newton received directly from God. Okay? And he received it in such a way that he knew with absolute conviction and certainty that he was given the truth. Now, when this was brought up to Sai 10, a man named Aaron Raw said, well, what about this and this and this and this? What about George Harrison having a personal relationship with Krishna? What about Sir Isaac Newton being given direct revelation from God that his ideals were true, and that there was no Jesus Christ, that Jesus Christ was just a prophet? He was not the Savior of mankind. Sai 10 said, well, then I reject it. He was deceived. Okay, his argument is that these people were deceived, even though they were given direct revelation from a higher being through a personal relationship with that being, and they were given this revelation in such a way that they knew for absolute certainty that what they were being taught or told was absolutely true, without question. This is what he's refuting. The very fact that he's saying this also means that he refutes the LDS Church for sure. For sure. The LDS Church is absolutely untrue according to his what he's saying. So when you have this problem, and this isn't just a couple people, this is everybody who has a personal relationship with their God, believes that they have been given direct revelation from their specific God, that what they believe is absolutely true, and it has been given to them in such a way that it cannot be false, that it is absolute truth. There is no question about it. There's a major problem with that. This is what the LDS people call the truth test. You pray about it, God gives you a revelation. Oh, I get a fuzzy feeling in my heart, that means it's true. But there's a major problem with that test, because all religions have that truth test. It is same across the board. You can go to any church. Psi 10 also denounces Protestantism and a ton of other religions, saying that they are false because what God has revealed to him, they have revealed to him in such a way that he knows with absolute certainty that what God has revealed to him is truth. There is no question. Is this not a major problem? Is this not what the LDS people claim? That God has revealed to them in such a way that they know for sure, that, with absolute certainty, that there is no other truth, and then what they believe is the truth? How can this be? How can this be? How can this man over here claim that, and these people over here claim the same thing? I have had that revelation. I have had that burning in the bosom. I have had spiritual experiences. And I can tell you, looking back on them, they did not reveal truth to me. They were emotional responses to a paradigm that I was raised in and sounded like a pretty good deal, and I wanted it to be true, and it was an emotional response to that. You've got to realize that our brains are much more complicated than people think. One tiny fraction of a change in the levels of neurotransmitters, and you can be seeing things that you've never seen before. They've studied the spiritual experience in the laboratory, and they know what parts of the brain light up when people are having personal experiences with their specific personal God. And it's all the same across the board. There is no difference between Mormons and Catholics and Buddhists. It's the same part of the brain. And what's interesting is it's the frontal cortex, the area that controls conversational interaction. This part lights up. Well, what should be understood about this is that is a conversation being lit up inside the person's brain. So I want you to think about this. The very conviction that you have that has caused you to know for certain that Mormonism is true is the very same conviction that this man, Psi 10, has, that he knows for certain that his beliefs are true. In fact, he would argue this way. He would say, is it possible that you could be wrong about everything? And a logical person would say, yeah, it's possible. It's possible I could be deceived. It's possible I'm schizophrenic. It's possible, you know, I'm a brain in a vat. It's possible I'm plugged into some matrix. And he goes, see, there's a difference. I know that God is my God, and that the revelation He gives me is true because He's given it to me in such a way that it is impossible for it not to be true. Yet, that completely contradicts every single LDS person that says the same thing. And it completely contradicts every Buddhist person that says the same thing. It completely contradicts every Islam, every Muslim that says the same thing. It completely contradicts every Jewish person that says the same thing. So this is really fascinating. You can go out to any denomination of Christianity or any other religion for that matter and ask, what has caused you to believe that this specific denomination is true, or that this specific religion is true? And they will give you a very enlightening story concerning an extremely potent spiritual experience that they have had, wherein the God of their specific faith has witnessed to them through His powers that what they believe in is absolutely true, and there is no question about that. This is the problem with religion. Now, it's at this point that you have to consider that if there is a spiritual reality, that spiritual information is highly misconstrued. It's completely confused. It has very little substance to it. I can tell you that through my personal experiences with the spiritual reality, through having left my body on multiple occasions now, that the spiritual world does not hold to any sort of law of, I mean, you can cause things to appear in front of you with a thought. You can cause all sorts of differences to happen. You can cause walls that in reality would normally be white to be purple with pink dots all over it. There's this incoherence of if in fact that spiritual reality does exist, of that reality. It is very subjective to one's emotions, one's impressions, as far as thoughts go. And if this is in fact the nature of the spiritual reality, now let me give you an example. If an atheist has an out-of-body experience, a near-death experience, if he goes to the hospital and has a near-death experience, more often than not, an atheist will report either just meeting family members that have passed, just bumping into them and meeting them, or an alien abduction scenario. Now, how bizarre is that, to have a near-death experience be portrayed in an alien abduction scenario? If a Buddhist has a near-death experience, and this is all documented, you can look all this stuff up. If a Buddhist has a near-death experience, he will experience seeing the Buddha in brilliant golden light at the center of all creation, and experience the absolute bliss it is to merge with the existence of all things, with the spirit of creation, with that which has that primordial whatever that gave rise to all things. And that is his experience in a near-death experience. If a Christian dies, they will see Christ. They will see Jesus Christ, and he will give them a tour of heaven. If a Hindu dies, they will meet Krishna, Vishnu. They will meet these gods and be shown the wonders of creation throughout all eternity. They will be shown everything, here, this, that, and the other. How is this possible? Now people will come back and write books about this and be like, I know Christianity is true because this is my experience, my near-death experience. Well, what about the other guy in the other religion that came back and said, I know that this is true because this is my experience and my near-death experience? It's completely wrong. These people are, if this is a spiritual reality, these people are, and I can attest to this as a fact, that your mental state, your mind, your thoughts, your emotions have a very real effect on the spiritual plane. If in fact it is a spiritual plane, if it's not some delusion that happens, if I only think I'm leaving my body, or if my mind is making this all up. Your mind has a very real effect on this plane. Okay, so we've got everybody having all of these experiences, and nobody is considering that, maybe there's something else going on here. If this reality actually exists, maybe it's the fact that whatever our deepest core desire and belief is that which manifests itself at that time. Is it not possible that this knowledge, this fullness of knowledge that you have, is simply a spiritual energy or an emotion that you create yourself because your mind has such an impression on that material plane, on that non-material plane, that it causes a vibration by which the human mind that is unable to truly decipher the spiritual reality and what is going on, to believe that that is a direct revelation disseminating that perfect knowledge. Either that, or everybody else is lying and everybody else is crazy except for you. And if that's a fact, Side 10 over here would like to dispute that, because he knows for sure that he's correct and you guys are wrong. He's had it delivered to him in such a manner that there is no question that it is absolutely true, that what he believes is true and Mormonism is wrong. These are major problems. These are seriously massive major problems. when you get to this point and you realize that we have all of these problems, that it doesn't matter who you talk to, that they have a spiritual experience concerning their particular belief system, even their particular belief system within a belief system within a belief system, that their interpretations of the scriptures is correct and the other people in their ward is not. That their interpretation of this and that is correct and the other people's are not. This is a huge, huge problem in any religion. And so I would like to at least ask you guys to please consider this stuff. And now we're at this point where we have this experience that is so malleable and so putty-like. You know, it's just this impression absorbing energy that just gives rise to whatever you happen to be thinking about at any one time, which actually goes in line with what a lot of the mystics say, that have taken the veridical step of trying to verify subjectively through scientific means the spiritual reality. These people, like Franz Barden and Robert Bruce and all these people who have taught themselves how to get out of their bodies, who have taught themselves how to verify that they're actually perceiving the physical world with this kind of overlay of spiritual warpness that gives it, you know, differences according to what your projection is onto that matter. They have traveled through and explored multiple dimensions of the spirituality, all the way to claiming to where they have actually merged with the God Source's mind, and having experienced all of creation at all times in all possibilities at once. That they have experienced this absolute knowledge of all things, wherein they come back. Now what's interesting is these people that have done this, not just believe something because they had a feeling, but have decided to take the step to actually investigate, all have the same experience. They all say, if you believe in Jesus, people are going to see Jesus. If you believe in this and that, you're going to see this and that. In fact, there are separate realms of the astral plane where people that are Mormon go when they die, because it corroborates with their belief system. People that are Buddhists go to where they die because it corroborates with their belief system. Actually, not Buddhists, because Buddhists are one of the ones that actually do the subjective scientific research for themselves to know what is going on. But it takes a certain level of mind control, and you can't just take any specific feeling as any sort of truth, because there are counterfeits of these spiritual impressions. In fact, I've played on multiple levels with these counterfeits. I've caused my entire room to be as brilliant and bright and busting with energy as the celestial room is when I experience the celestial room. It may not even be the same experience you've had in there, but it was the experience that I had, and I was able to reconjure that up, and I actually got to the point where I could reconjure it up at any time I wanted to. Okay, so I don't remember where I left off. So we have the problem where everybody seems to believe that they have been given irrefutable spiritual proof directly from their personal creator that has acknowledged to them for certain that what they believe is true. This is a paradox. This is impossible that this could happen, except for that some people are being deceived, or everybody's being deceived. Now, Side 10 argues that either the other people have never had a spiritual experience and have never received a spiritual witness, because if they would know for certain that they were wrong and that Psi's beliefs are true. Or that they are somehow being deceived with some sort of, a counterfeit spiritual experience that testifies to them that what they believe is true. And if that's the case, then how does he know that he's not one of the people that's receiving this counterfeit information, or that he's not one of the people that's being deceived, or that never had the spiritual experience, is just making it up in his mind? This is the problem with this pray and ask God if this is true, because everybody's prayed, and everybody's asked their own personal God whether or not their personal belief system is true or false. And every single person has received an affirmative. Not every single person. There are some that have never received an answer. But how do you account for that? This is a serious flaw in the foundation of every single belief system, except for the belief systems that say that veridical evidence and proof is necessary in one's spiritual progression, that they must perfect themselves and learn how to get out of body and do experiments and verify between the spiritual and the physical and align things and take control over it and raise their spiritual vibration all the way to the point where they can merge with the God consciousness and know everything for certain without any question. That's the only way, or apparently the only way. That to me, that seems to be the only logical way to solve this problem. On the other hand, we can take the physical evidence side. So every single one of you is LDS, the 5 of you, and you are LDS because you believe that what your religion teaches is the pure truth of God, that God has revealed himself through Joseph Smith and rebuilt his personal church on the earth, and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the only true and living church upon the face of the earth. That's what you believe. So, according to your belief, truth is important to you, right? This is a very important thing for you to understand. According to your belief, truth is important to you. So it would be important for you to know whether or not you were correct. Isn't that right? The problem is, every time I've asked somebody who is LDS, well, what if you're wrong? They shrug and go, well, at least it's given me a good life. At least I know I've lived a good life. Well, that completely brushes aside the appeal to truth. You're saying, yes, I am in my church because I believe it is the absolute truth. My devotion to finding absolute truth is so important, and this is my manifestation of my desire for truth is in the church because I believe it is true. It has been testified to me that I believe that it is true, just like it's been testified to Sai that his beliefs are truth, and all these other people and all these other religions that their beliefs are true, with just as much conviction, just as much spiritual potency, just as much intensity in the experience, and just as much rigidity in the belief that what they believe is absolute, unalterable fact. So let me appeal to your sense of truth. Let me try to bring this to you. Wouldn't you want to know if your religion was false? Wouldn't you want to know if you have been duped? Wouldn't that be important to you? The Jehovah's Witness is actually very similar to the LDS religion. They teach to bear their testimony, okay, to repeat to themselves and to others that they believe that their church is the only true church. Okay, the Jehovah's Witness is actually very, very similar to the LDS religion in many aspects of how they teach the material. Now, if I'm to appeal to your sense of truth, and if I were to ask you, wouldn't that be important enough for you to know whether or not you were being deceived or not? Wouldn't that be important? Or would you be the person that says, well, at least it's given me a good life? Well, what if it hasn't given you a good life? What if you only believe that because that's what you've been told? There's some very strange things going on here. What if your belief is wrong? Okay, what if it is? It's not just, well, it's given me a good life. What if your belief is wrong and the true God is going to punish you for it? Is that not a possibility? Because these guys over here are telling me that their belief system is true too, and that God is going to punish anybody who doesn't follow him. What if they are correct? What if they're the ones that are correct? And what if you are the ones that are wrong? And what if you are going to burn in hell for the rest of eternity because you have been deceived and you are not willing to look at things objectively? That would be a problem. It wouldn't matter if it's given you a good life or not. This would be a very serious problem. You would be burning in the literal fires of hell because you are not willing to objectively look at your circumstance. So, and this is my concern. This is my deepest concern. Every single piece of evidence that I have found has shown me that belief in God correlates strongly to social dysfunction. In fact, there was a study that they did that shows us, and they were so skeptical of the results that they thought, okay, we have got to make sure that this is a correlation. So they ran it through a brilliant array of statistical tests, and the analysis shows that belief in God in a society, in a social setting, is strongly statistically corroborated or correlative to social dysfunction. Like strongly, on ridiculous scales. Did you know Utah is the porn capital of the United States? We have more pornography addiction in Utah than any other state. We also have the highest incidence of antidepressants. We also have the highest incidence of depression and suicides within the church. How is that possible? And specifically, it's for women. Women are depressed, and they deny it to themselves. They will not admit that they have had a depressing time. They will say, oh yeah, this is the truth. I know it's the truth that gives me comfort, etc., etc. But they cry constantly. They have breakdowns. They have mental fatigue. They lose it. They snap. This is very common in the LDS church. The church says that you do not have true happiness unless you are inside the church. Well, if true happiness is a statistical incline of very serious depression, how does that make sense? There are so many problems with this. It is so contradictory. And so I'm asking you to seriously consider that you may be wrong. That you may be believing something that is not true. Just like everybody else. There's nothing special about your spiritual experience versus theirs. It is identical. Not the experience itself, but the intensity of it, the personal revelation, the personal essence of these experiences. It's not the same. There's nothing special about the spiritual experiences of LDS members versus spiritual experiences of members outside of the church. So this is my appeal to your desire to know truth. I'm asking you to seriously take a look at this, because if it is not true, let me flip the script, and I want you to follow this mentally. If your church is not true, what are the implications? The implications are that you believe homosexuals and homosexuality is evil, that you believe that premarital sex is evil and a sin to God, that you believe that if your children do not return to the church, that it is somehow on your heads for not being a good parent. The church teaches that if you live your life righteously, that your children will, if they have gone astray, will eventually come back to the church. How is that for a mind job? You're liable for my salvation if you're not living correctly? No wonder the church has incredible amounts of frustration and anxiety and depression. These sorts of things cause this. These are the beliefs that, if your church is not true, are having a major impact on you. There's many of them. It's a whole array. It's the entire lifestyle and mindset that you have adopted and believe is true. It's the glasses through which you view the world. And if your belief system is not true, and so if your core beliefs that are based on this belief system are false, and you are judging the world according to a specific belief system, and if these judgments actually have an effect on the real world, you're affecting people in real time with their lives because of a belief system that you have that is not true. Can you believe what if, again, just follow me here, what if there is no spiritual reality? What if evolution is a pure true? What if consciousness is an emergent property of the brain and neurosynapses firing? What if that is how it is? What if that is how it is? Then you have spent an entire lifetime giving money to a foundation that is false, giving money to a community that is not true. You've spent an entire lifetime fighting against people that have just as much of a right to live and love on this planet as you do, and you have made their lives miserable through political influence, through social influence, through family influence. You know, the men and women whose families abandon them because they come out of the closet and they lose their families and they go through all this hardship because of a belief. You're massively affecting not just yourself. This isn't a personal choice. This is a very serious social. It has very serious social implications. What if there is no spiritual reality? Then there's no sin. And so it would be a social contract that we all would have to agree to understand that in order for us to all be happy, we have to agree that we will respect each other and live in cooperation and live with love in our hearts. But that's not what happens in religion. I'm very concerned about this, and I'm very concerned about the people that have this this mindset. I love you guys. I love each and every one of you, but this is very worrying about me, and I feel like my experience coming out of the church is very akin to I'm sure what Neo felt being unplugged from the Matrix. You suddenly see the larger picture, and you realize how just judgmental you have been, and how hateful you have been, and how you didn't see it when you were inside the religion. This happens in all religions. People that leave, not just LDS, people that leave Jehovah's Witness, or okay, go grab a napkin, sweetie. Or the Catholicism, or Hinduism, or Islam. People that leave these religions feel this very same way. It's the same across the board. They feel like they have had this weight lifted off of their shoulders. This incredible pressure just released, like I'm free. My mind is free. I can think what I want to think. And this has very serious implications for them. Their whole social life turns around. They become much happier. They become much more responsible. They become much more loving. Granted, I had a problem. When my faith was pulled out from under my rugs, it was a very traumatic experience. Something I had built my entire life upon, this belief system. Okay, here you go. Here, just hold it in right here. This traumatic experience, and it just... Okay. Just... Hold on. Hang around right here, okay? Sit on my lap. And so yeah. And you know, people will look at people that leave the church and say, see, they left the church and now they're not happy anymore. Now they have a drug addiction or something. And it's like, well, yeah, this happens across the board. And the problem is that people have this. Okay, we're gonna go to grandma's in a minute. The problem is that your entire world just got pulled out from under you. You realize that you have been wrong this entire time. It is traumatic. It is similar to any sort of like heavy, massive trauma. Could you imagine? Could you imagine if all of a sudden your world just fell apart and you know, you woke up in some chair with a thing stuck into the back of your head and some guy said, "Ha, your whole life is a joke." Nobody you knew ever even really existed. All of your relationships mean nothing. This isn't something that, you know, that you can just ride off like it happened in the Matrix. It took him a minute to really adjust to it, but it didn't even show the gravity of the trauma of the situation. It's not something that can just happen and you be okay. And this is with all religions. This is with all religions. This isn't just the LDS religion. This happens across the board. Hold on, sweetie. Hold on. Okay, so here's the problem. If this is true, if the church is not true, wouldn't you want to know? You can't just say, well, it's giving me a good life. That's a cop-out. And it's not true either. All the studies show that the people, the more religious societies, are the more dysfunctional societies. They're the societies with the higher problems, the more crime rates, the higher depression, higher suicide rates. I mean, it correlates with so many factors of what you would consider to be the effect of mental constraint, of being in a mental box, of being tricked into something, of having something wrong, and you know it deep down that there's something wrong, but not being able to express it because you're being told not to. And so I worry for all of you. I worry for generations to come that are born into indoctrinated families. It doesn't matter what religion. Indoctrination is indoctrination. You get born into a family and told that your religion is true, you're going to believe it. That's how it is. If you guys were all born into Islam, you would be Muslims right now. That's how it is. And this is very scary that people aren't taking the time to objectively reflect on the consequences of what it means if their belief system that has absolutely no evidence behind it is actually false. So the problem is we have no way to tell that the spiritual experiences are actually correct because everybody has them. So that goes out the window. We've gone over that. So the one thing to really look at is you have to look at the historicity and the proofs of your religion. Is the religion true? Well, let's look at the proofs. And you can't look at it looking just at the apologetic arguments. You have to look at it objectively. And as I've done this, I've seen that there are some major problems. The Kinderhook plates, Joseph Smith, and this is another problem. Okay, let's take the Kinderhook plates for instance. You read about the Kinderhook plates, and you read all this information, and that Joseph Smith was duped into the Kinderhook plates. They were actually found. For a long time, the church said that the Kinderhook plates actually were ancient records, and that everybody was lying, until we found one of the Kinderhook plates. And then the church changed their stance again and said, oh, well, the person that developed it was just an evil person being manipulated by Satan so he could, try to deface Joseph Smith. Well, how did the church change their stance on something that's so important like that? You look at the arguments for the Kinderhook plates, and Joseph Smith himself, in his journal, has his interpretation of them. He says he translated them, that it was a record of an ancient Jaredite people, and he even talks about some of the stuff of the people that the Kinderhook plates supposedly say. Just rub your belly, and then you go to the apologist website, and they don't even have that quote. They just say that everybody's lying, blah blah blah, this and that. And this is what you have to look at. As you look through this is what I've noticed, that you have the objective people presenting the objective information in a very objective way, and hey, look at this and this and this, let's look at all this stuff. And then you go to the apologist website, like Fair Mormon or Fair LDS, and you realize that they not only leave out the information that does not sustain their argument, but they use logical fallacies in all of their arguments. They use stuff like appeal to authority. They use the bandwagon fallacy. They use ad hominem attacks all over the place. You would not believe the amount of times they attack personal credibility. You would not believe it. It is insane. And so we have the Kinderhook plates. We have the failed prophecies. Joseph Smith prophesied that Governor Boggs would die a particular death in a certain time, and then all of a sudden an attempt was made on his life. Governor Boggs does not die, and Joseph Smith freaks out. This is recorded in journals, that he absolutely flips out that Governor Boggs didn't die and his prophecy was not fulfilled. And in fact, this is why William and Jane Law left the church, because Joseph Smith admitted to William Law that he sent a hitman after Governor Boggs. That's why they left the church. And then, wow, the church just destroyed the laws. They tried to discredit them any which way from north. It's insane. And there are problems. The three witnesses. Joseph Smith wrote the three and the 8 witnesses. You're okay. Okay, let's go. Go get some awa, okay? Go get some awa, sweetie. Okay, we'll get you some medicine. Okay, sweetheart. Sorry, I gotta get back to this. Joseph Smith wrote both the 3 and the 8 witnesses' testimonies. Not only that, but in the personal journals of the people that signed it, they were like, I was actually pretty hesitant about signing that. I didn't want to sign it. And not only that, the incident, the testimony of the 3 witnesses and the 8 witnesses, those incidents, those 3 people and the 3 witnesses didn't have that experience at the same time like it makes it sound. They had it at separate times. And not only that, on top of that, these people recorded in the journals that they were visionary experiences. That Joseph Smith had them sit in a field and close their eyes and say, okay, you kind of like walk through meditation. Now you see an angel and he brings these plates onto you and you hold them in your hands. Do you feel them? Yeah, I feel the plates. Yeah, these are definitely it. These are the reports we have from their journals. These men's journals. How come the church doesn't tell us anything about that? This isn't anti-Mormon literature. This is historical fact. And this is the stuff that the church does not tell you, and you have to wonder why. Why does the Book of Mormon contain 30% of the exact verse? 30% of the Book of Mormon is exact verses copied from the Bible. How come it is that the Book of Mormon, inside these verses copied from the Bible, contain the exact same translatory mistakes that existed and were specific to the King James Version Bible that Joseph Smith owned? How is that possible? Sorry about that. I believe I left off on the translation. And it wasn't Moroni or Mormon. It was, I believe, Nephi. It's in 3rd Nephi, if I recall correctly, that we have this entire discourse from Paul that is copied word for word into the Book of Mormon as a discourse from a prophet from the Book of Mormon. And except the exception is that the prophet from the Book of Mormon's discourse just happens to contain the exact translatory mistakes that are found in the very specific King James Version of the Bible that Joseph Smith owned. and then we can get into a lot of the problems with the Joseph Smith translation, wherein we have, such as an example is this, where we have just, an entire chapter copied over into the Book of Mormon, directly over, and then we have the Joseph Smith translation, which says something completely different. It completely changes the meaning of the discourse. So you have to rationalize, like, if this book is true, how is it that a prophet of ancient America gave the exact same discourse to his people as Paul did to his people, touching on the exact same social problems and ideals that just happened to be specific to Paul and his time and those people? For some reason, this other guy is talking about this stuff over here, and on top of that, he just happens to he doesn't say the exact same thing Paul does. He just says what Paul says and just happens to say exactly the same thing that appear in the translatory mistakes. And then the Joseph Smith translation says something different about Paul's discourse that is not in Nephi's discourse. And I mean, the problems just go on and on and on. And if God is a God of truth, and if God delights in simple and plain things, why is this so complicated? Why is it such a conundrum? Why are there so many problems? We can talk about, we did the witnesses. The retention rate of the church is horrendous. It's like less than 25%. On top of that, I bet none of you knew that the numbers that the church gives you about its growth each year is actually the number of every member since the start of the church all the way up till now, including the people that have been excommunicated and left the church. As a matter of fact, they actually did an analysis on this and showed that even though the church reported a positive sum, a positive, oh my gosh, what's the word for it? Conversion rate for 2012, that's not the case. In 2012, the church actually lost more people than it baptized. So why are they giving you this positive number that they've grown? They've actually shrunken. They lost, I can't remember the exact figure, it's almost 500,000 in 2012. So that's kind of interesting. Why would they be telling you false numbers? Why would they be telling you numbers that have nothing to do with the membership today, but the membership of all time, counting all of the people that they've ever baptized in the church, including the people that have been exed and that have left the church? Joseph Smith and polyandry. Why is he marrying other men's women? He would send men off to, on missions, and then he would marry their wives. And the apologists say, well, he had to take care of the wives, and at that time, it was looked down upon for a married man to take care of another married man's woman, and people were often stoned and killed over that kind of thing. That's not the truth. In fact, that was a very common practice back in that day, to take care of a woman that has been widowed either temporarily or permanently. It was a very common practice. Why did Joseph Smith have to marry them to take care of them? That just doesn't even make sense. He's marrying these women that are already married, and that we have actually some interesting evidence that hints that there were other things going on as well, not just him taking care of them, if you catch my drift. Why would a prophet be doing this? Even if, why couldn't he have given the money and food to his wife and had her take it over to her? I just don't understand why he had to marry them. And in fact, it just doesn't make sense. If you think about it, it's just logical nonsense, And he said, God commanded me, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, well, God also threatened multiple people with death for looking at the golden plates. Joseph Smith brought him in, and he said, nope, if you look at them, God's going to smite you dead. They're that important. Well, then why? It's just problem after problem after problem. Nobody, not a single soul saw the golden plates with their physical eyes except for Joseph Smith. Not a single person, including the witnesses. Once he had a cloth draped over them and they're allowed to heft it, what does that mean? Why can't you just see him? Isn't this something God is trying to bring back to the earth? Doesn't he need as many witnesses as possible? Doesn't he need ideals and people, yeah, I actually saw them, I looked at them. Well, why were we tricked into believing that happened with the testimonies, when in fact, that's not at all what happened? So, there's just problems. Polygamy was a huge problem. People don't realize that Joseph Smith, married a ton of people. I think, 32 people or something? I can't remember the exact figure, but it was a lot, or maybe it's like 16. But, one of them was a 14-year-old. Why is he marrying a girl? A girl. And we have a letter that he wrote to her. It is verified and confirmed, even by the church, that this is Joseph Smith's letter, his handwriting. This is from the time, this is him. He wrote this letter. Let me give you a hint of something it says in it. My feelings are so strong for you, since what has passed lately between us. It seems as if I could not live long in this way. I know it is the will of God that you should comfort me now in this time of affliction. The only thing to be careful of is to find out when Emma comes home. Then you cannot be safe. But when she is not here, then it is the most perfect safety. Burn this letter as soon as you read it. Keep all locked up in your breasts. You will pardon me for my earnestness on this subject. When you consider how lonesome I must be, I think Emma won't come tonight. If she don't fail to come tonight. Let that sink in. we know Joseph Smith wrote this while he was a prophet to a 14-year-old child. By the way, he told both this girl and her parents that if she wouldn't marry him, that God would send an angel with a flaming sword to murder Joseph Smith. Keep in mind, these were faithful people. They believed Joseph Smith was an actual prophet. And he's like, if you don't marry me, I've got to tell you guys, if you don't let your daughter marry me, God has threatened me and told me that if this doesn't happen, he will send an angel with a flaming sword and take my life. He's used this in many instances. People report Joseph Smith telling people that an angel with a flaming sword will kill him or kill them if they don't comply with whatever commandment the Lord has dished out. So that's frustrating to hear this stuff. I know I am trying to open your eyes to see what's going on here. I mean, take everything into account that I've said so far. This is a lot of stuff to handle. I'm sorry, but this is something I need to get off of my chest. And I feel like I can't personally progress until I completely detach from this nonsense that is happening. And the only way for me to do this personally is to do my part to send this video to a few of the key people I think would be most receptive to it, and the key people I care about quite a bit. And just please think about this stuff. Think about how they ask you to gain a testimony by repeating. I mean, we know, by saying it out loud and repeating it to people, we know that affirmations and autosuggestions work so well that they actually change the core structure of your own being to comply with your affirmations. It works for smoking, it works for quitting smoking or quitting drinking, it works for all sorts of life-changing things that you want to change, but it also works for negative things. It works for people telling themselves, oh, I'm so stupid, I'm so stupid. That eventually gets to people and rewrites their inner thing. Next thing you know, their IQ drops many levels, many points. Affirmations are very, very powerful. Why are we using a powerful mind control technique to gain a testimony? Of course you're going to gain a testimony if you do this. You could gain a testimony of anything doing this. I promise you, especially if you wanted to believe it. Make something up and then really want to believe it, and then start telling people and tell yourself. You will begin to believe it. This is how affirmations work. They're very, very powerful, powerful tools. Why are we using this to develop a testimony? Why? In this manner, it could be considered a brainwashing technique. You need to consider this. And it will go deep down into that core center of who you are and reconfigure it in such a manner that whatever you're saying will be what you believe. So, I mean, it's just one thing after another, after another, after another. I've not even given you the tip of the iceberg. I mean, we have problems with Joseph Smith sent Martin Harris to sell the copyright of the Book of Mormon so they could get rich. Martin Harris admits this in his journal. He admits it. And he admits in front of several other people too, who put it in their journal that he admits it. He said, what do I care if their church is true? It will make a rich man of me. That's the gist of his quote. Look it up. Please, look at this stuff. He didn't care. Why is Joseph Smith wearing a Jupiter talisman? That's hermetic magic. That's occult stuff. If he had a personal relationship with God and was visited by angels and listening to all this stuff, why is he practicing medieval magic? I mean, it's just so many things You guys, how many failed prophecies? How many obviously failed prophecies? And then how many times has a church, said, well, he wasn't prophesying as a prophet when he said that. What does that mean? When do you not prophet? If you're called as a prophet and you make a prophecy, it better well down be a good prophecy, a direct prophecy directly from God, and it better come true, or it's not prophecy. Period. There is no way around that. Absolutely not. You cannot build a defense for that. And so here I am, I was going through this stuff, and I'm just mind blown. It's just one thing after another. The whole Spalding manual, the manual by the Smith character, View of the Hebrews. In View of the Hebrews, you hear, oh, well, Joseph Smith plagiarized View of the Hebrews and the Spalding manuals, etc., etc. Yeah, he probably did. In View of the Hebrews, the two main people's names, the prophets, are Lehi and Nephi. They leave Jerusalem, come to America. They're the ancestors of the modern American Indians. They split into two groups. One gets cursed with a black skin. They have wars and contentions. It is like mind-numbingly similar. Why would God allow something like that to happen even by chance? If God is a God that believes that plain and simple things are the way to go, if he's a God of truth, how come there are so many discrepancies? So many. If you look at the objective problems and then you go to fairlds.org and look at their arguments, it is just riddled with logical fallacies of all sorts. Appeal to authority, appeal to oh my goodness, ad hominem attacks throughout everything. They attack everybody. The slander that is in that, like complete mudslinging. Why are they doing that? If this is true, plain, simple stuff, why do we even have fair LDS? They stretch stuff so far to make it fit, you wouldn't believe it. If you look at the objective material first, and then read fair LDS's rebuttal, it will make you you will not believe how far they stretch things to make it fit. And it's everything. It's not just one or two things. It's every single thing of these hundreds of problems. They stretch it to make it fit. There is not one thing that is just an easy fit. They have to stretch it. Well, we don't know if Joseph Smith went this or this, and he could have very possibly been influenced by this or that or the other, and they make all these exceptions and slippery slope assumptions, and it's just unruly. It is just so out of control. I don't even know how to explain it to you. What about the Book of Abraham? Did you know that the idea that the sun borrows light from another sun comes from a manual that Joseph Smith owned? That the cosmology that is every single point of cosmology that is in the Book of Abraham comes directly from this other book that we know that he owned. The church knows he owned this book. They don't say anything about it. Borrowing the other sun's light. This was like Newtonian physics at that time. This was stuff everybody knew. There was a preacher named Benjamin at that time that Joseph Smith went to see. He was a preacher, just like the story of King Benjamin in his final speech. The preacher was ill. He went to give a discourse. People came from all across the United States to come listen to him. They put up tents facing there. People fell. Why are people falling and shaking? This is stuff that happened in specific. This is like rocking and rolling. This is holy rollers stuff. What is that stuff doing in the true church of ancient America? People pitch up their tents facing this. Even the language of the discourse is exactly the same. Why is 18th century topics specific to Joseph Smith's region being talked about by a man from ancient America, where those topics had nothing to do with anything at that time. Oh, and they tell you that there's no big edits in the Book of Mormon. Oh my goodness, you guys need to take a look at these edits. Like, vast. Did you know that King Mosiah, this was in 1960s, they changed King Benjamin. Several times when King Benjamin is mentioned in Mosiah, they change it to King Mosiah. So they actually changed the name of a character in the Book of Mormon from King Benjamin to King Mosiah. Why did they do this? Because they suddenly realized that, oh my goodness, King Benjamin was dead at this time. We better rewrite it and make sure it's just King Mosiah. Why are they doing this stuff? That's all I'm going to say. That I hope I have startled you. I hope I have lit a fire under you to actually look at this stuff objectively and seriously, because of all of the reasons I have said up till now. I believe this is important. I believe it is damaging to believe something that isn't true. And I believe the search for truth, as long as people are not willing to look outside their paradigm and objectively consider what is going on from a broad perspective, is actually hurting our world. And there is evidence. There is evidence that this is the case. Please do this. Please, please, at least consider what I'm saying. If you look at all this stuff and you look at all the evidence and you make all the comparisons and you read all the arguments and you say, I'll just continue being LDS, fine, whatever, do your thing. But at least, do yourself the favor of doing the study. Study it in your mind, as even said in Doctrine and Covenants. Study it out in your mind first. At least do yourself that favor. I love you guys. I do, and this is why this is so... why I'm being so intense about this. Because this is some pretty big stuff. This is pretty intense stuff. I mean, we have prophets and apostles lying on Larry King Live. Hinckley said any member who pays their tithing can request a review of all the books. We don't hide anything. Our finances are an open book. That is what he said. That is the quote. It is an open book. Any member who pays his tithing has access to that information. Try it. Just go and request the church's financial information. If you're a full-time payer, just go and test this little theory. Other people have. This has never been the case, ever. We have public documents where apostles are buying and selling homes from and to the church, and we know that apostles own like $3 or $4 million homes that are after the fact of their apostleship, even the ones that were not wealthy that became apostles. We have apostles coming to Grant Palmer and telling him, I know the church isn't true and I don't know what to do about it. I've read all of the material. I know it's not true. I have no idea what to do about it. And we have another one that comes to him and says, they all know. We all know. It took Uchtdorf a little bit longer because he's a foreigner and he's not, there's like cliquish stuff even going on in the apostle groups. But it took him a little longer to realize. I mean, we have reports of apostles that left the church after receiving their calling and election made sure, because when they went in to get their calling and election, it was just them and the other guy, no Jesus. They're like, Isn't Jesus supposed to be here? Isn't he supposed? Isn't that what the doctrine says, that the only way you can receive your calling and election sure is from Jesus himself? Where's Jesus? And then and this really frustrated him. And on top of that, the other apostle said, well, why don't you go ahead and think about the people you know and pick one for the next guy, the next person that's going to get their calling and election made sure. Why are humans deciding who's going to get their calling and election made sure? This is really bizarre, because everything that we know says that Jesus Christ himself, I mean, that used to be what I worked for, was to have my calling and election made sure, so I could actually finally have the evidence that Jesus existed, and that's what it is for. It even says that so you will know for a surety. Well, I wanted to go back and insert this part because I believe this is an extremely important facet to this whole presentation, and I truly hope you watch this and watch it with an open mind and an open heart. I want to talk briefly, maybe 5 minutes, about the Book of Abraham. Now, most of the Mormons, or members of the church, understand that there are problems with the Book of Abraham, and most of the problems have just kind of been brushed aside. However, I don't think people understand the gravity of these problems, and let me present these to you one at a time. I think you will find these interesting, as well as extremely informative. Let's talk about the lion couch scene. Now, the lion couch scene is this one with the priest as he's about to sacrifice Abraham. I want you to notice something. Here we have actually the original papyri that Joseph Smith used to translate from. And let me show you what it looks like. This is the original papyri. Now, as we can see, we're missing a large portion of what's going on here. We're missing the priest's head, the body, etc. What we can... now, this is what Joseph Smith came up with, and this is the problem with it. In most lion couch scenes, this isn't actually a really common scene. In fact, this is a funerary rite that most people are buried with, and it is extremely common. We have many examples of it, and here we can see several examples alone just printed across here. Now, these all have Anubis standing over the person laying down on the lion couch. This is the problem. We have a black body. We have a black body with a sash, which is iconic of Anubis. We know this. This is all the way through Egyptian history. This is supposed to be Anubis. Joseph Smith, we think, actually drew in, well, we know drew in the rest of what's going on here. He put both hands going up, a white man's head on a black Anubis body, and a knife. When in fact, a lion couch scene should look like this, with Anubis, with the black body, the man laying there. These are not idolatrous gods under here, as Joseph Smith claims. They are, in fact, the jars with the organs in them. So that alone is a big problem. Every single Egyptologist that has looked at this said this is a normal lion couch scene. This is not Abraham getting murdered by an idolatrous priest. The second problem with this is this particular papyri, the papyri that we found, has nothing to do with anything that Joseph Smith said it had anything to do with. In fact, this is a burial rite specifically for a man named Hor, and it goes on to, about just normal, boring burial rite stuff, nothing to do with like amazing cosmology or Abraham himself. The second thing is this parchment has been dated to chronologically fit 2,000 years after Abraham. So that's another big problem. How did Abraham write a document that he was completely out of time with? Now, let's move on from the lion couch scene to the hypocephalus. Actually, let's look at this for a second. The facsimile 3, before they do the hypocephalus. Facsimile 3, this has been translated by Egyptologists, like people who study this stuff for their life. They know what they're talking about. We look at these characters, and And Joseph Smith has his translation of what's going on here. But in Egyptian, like for instance, one right here, where are we? We have stuff saying things like recitation by Osiris, foremost of the Westerners, Isis the Great, the God's mother, Mast, Ma'at, mistress of the gods, the Osiris port, justified forever, recitation by Anubis, who makes protection, foremost of the embalming booth. This is all Egyptian god stuff, and this here is, in fact, I believe, oh, this is Osiris. And the crazy thing is the hat is indicative that is Osiris. This is Osiris's hat. This is not Abraham sitting on a throne. This has nothing to do with anything that Joseph Smith talks about. Here's something actually quite disturbing. We found this as well in the actual papyri. This whole area is missing right here. Joseph Smith drew in these letters. Now, if an Egyptologist looks at this, they will see, you know, something that makes sense all the way around, and then just a bunch of gibberish. Joseph Smith copied these letters from something else completely, and not only did he copy them, oh no, he may have grabbed it from somewhere in here. Nonetheless, he put them in upside down. Like, how is it that the one piece that is completely missing is where Joseph Smith fills it in, and fills it in completely upside down with something that doesn't even make sense? That's completely counterintuitive to somebody who should be able to, or not counterintuitive, counter against. It's against somebody who should be able to translate through the power of God and act accordingly. Another thing is, and let's show you guys this, because this is interesting. This right here is, I believe, Min, the god of fertility and sex. And as we can see, Min has an erection. This is iconic of the god Min. If we look at this right here, we see this is the god Min with an erection. Now, in the Joseph Smith translation, this is supposed to be God sitting upon his throne with an erection. So what you might find interesting is that for a while, the church actually got rid of that. So we can look at this here and see that God sitting upon his throne does not have an erection. Well, I don't know if this is because they received criticism or what, but why would you take something out of something that is there? That's why would you do that? You know, that doesn't make sense. Joseph Smith said it's God with an erection, then it's God with an erection. That's what he translated, right? I mean, that's what the Spirit told him to do. Well, so as we can see, they erased it in many versions of the Book of Mormon, but they also left it in many versions of the Book of Mormon. If this is supposed to be the most true and correct book, why are they making so many changes? Like, that's a pretty big change. I mean, they're completely altering the meaning of the scene. This is Min, the god of sex and reproduction and fertility. So that's kind of that. That's the Book of Abraham. The Egyptologists that have translated this say Joseph Smith is completely wrong. In fact, let me read this. One of the most, oh, I'm sorry, that's the Egyptologists state that Joseph Smith's translation of the papyri and facsimiles are gibberish and have absolutely nothing to do with what the papyri and facsimiles actually are and what they actually say. Nothing in each and every facsimile is correct to what Joseph Smith claimed they said. This is people who have studied this stuff for their life. There is no possible way anything he said is correct in any form. We have Joseph Smith's own diary of Egyptian characters where he writes out big, long explanations of what each character means, and it's completely wrong. Like, so wrong. The Egyptologists find it actually laughable, which is pretty sad. If this is supposed to be, now the apologists will say, that it was a catalyst. That it was a catalyst to get his juices going, that he could, and get the Book of Abraham going. Why did he have to use it? Why didn't he just use something else? Why did he say that this is the actual literal translation of this stuff, if it was supposed to be a catalyst for a manuscript that he didn't have? Why was an angel capable of bringing the Book of Mormon back and from heaven, to and fro from heaven, but wasn't able to retrieve the actual manuscript that Joseph Smith needed to translate the Book of Abraham? The explanations that Fair and the apologists have made just don't hold up if you think about it. They're completely illogical. There's no reason why papyri that is 2,000 years younger than Abraham, that has nothing to do with Abraham, but in fact are burial rites for a man named Hor. There's no reason why God would allow Joseph Smith to translate that and then say that it was the literal translation of that. And go to Fair's website and see how they manipulate this and make it all okay. Why would God allow that? That's not simple, If God delights in plain and simple things, that is not simple. The papyrus has nothing to do with Abraham. It just doesn't. Period. This brings into question Joseph Smith's capacity for translation. Okay, so that's enough time. I'm sure this is going to be a long enough video. And as I had said before, I hope I've at least instilled into you that there are a lot of things that are extremely problematic. I have just literally touched the tip of the iceberg, and not just like kind of problematic like the church makes it seem, where you're in church and they're just talking about, oh, these critics that are pulling stuff out of thin air and contorting things to make them seem so bad. No, these are like blatantly horrific problems that just are non-conformative to what you hear in church, to what you read in the scriptures and in the manuals, the priesthood manuals and stuff. These are like extremely serious problems. And when you take into account everything I've said throughout this video, you have to stop and at least think, have I been duped? Have I been duped? For me, it is not even a question. For me personally, I believe I've absolutely been fully duped, and that I lived 20 years of my life completely duped. And I understand that a lot of you have lived your entire lives not just dedicating your life to the church, but working for the church and doing very, like, completely orienting your life around the social structures provided by the church. And so I understand that it may be a very extremely difficult thing to grasp, and that to even at that point make the decision that you can't leave the social structure. Even these gentlemen that have come to Grant Palmer and said, I know it's not true. I'm a general authority. I know it's not true. What am I going to do? I don't know how to do it. My entire life is plugged into this structure. I know it's causing problems. I know it's the reason why we have such high pornography addiction in the church and have such massive depression, because we push these people and we make them feel that they believe to their very core that they are nothing without the church. And so this has very dramatic psychological effects. And when you hear people say things like the LDS Church is a cult, it's not because they're trying to slam the LDS Church and be evil people and try to shame the church. It's because many of the facets of the LDS Church are in direct corroboration with sociological bullet points of what cult activity is, and many of them is the absolute authoritarian stuff, The leader has all truth. You don't question the leader. Dissenters are ridiculed, which if you don't think that happens, trust me, that happens. Families are destroyed when people leave the church. But when families are destroyed when people come into the church, we applaud them and say, hey, great job, good job, buddy, you destroyed your entire life, but at least you're part of the church. But when people leave the church and their families are destroyed, we go, oh, what a shame. God must really be sad right now. And it's just this the testimony where you, I mean, that's even a bullet point where you the technique of controlling the mind and duping oneself into believing that a system is true by using such techniques as auto-suggestions and affirmations. It's not that people are trying to, mudsling. It's because, according to what a cult is, the church fits it bullet point for bullet point. And if you want an objective look, go look at the Jehovah's Witness Church. It is eerily similar to the LDS Church. When you look at the departure stories, when people have finally realized that the Jehovah's Witness Church is a fraud and that it's a cult and that they've been brainwashed and all this stuff, and you listen to their conferences, it is like just like our conferences. The men have this air of, authority, and they tell these funny stories, and they even sound like them. It's so bizarre to watch it. And and their mind control techniques, you should see some of the videos that they have their kids watch. I mean, they're not that different from LDS videos, but why kids shouldn't play with magical toys like, Harry Potter stuff, and how they drill it into their children's head that this is evil stuff, and how Jehovah hates this, that, and the other, and it's really telling. I urge you to at least look up, on YouTube, Jehovah's Witness exit stories and excommunication stories and stuff. I mean, they're just what they say happens in there, and the techniques that they use. They tell them not to read anti-Jehovah's Witness material, and they tell them that the reason they are so ridiculed is because they are the true church, and the reason people sit outside their fences with signs that say Jehovah's Witness is a cult, and listing why, that is because the devil has played them against the church as a means to frustrate God's work. So it's so similar in nature. It's actually very eerie, extremely eerie. But yeah, so I'm going to wrap this up. This is something that I had to do for me personally. It's something that I want to do for you guys, and if you feel like this is something that you want to look into, I urge you to share this video. This is a private video. It will only be viewable and searchable by you who I send the link to. Nobody else on the internet will see it. But if you choose to share this link, that is your choice. I love you guys. I mean, each and every one of you. I love you. I think you're great people. And I think you have a lot to offer. and I'm just frustrated to see people that I love, from my point of view, being into something that is so questionable and has so many problems. And I know you haven't heard 90% of what I've told you tonight. I know you know nothing of this stuff. That's because they don't tell you this stuff. And so this is why they say don't look at anti-Mormon literature. It's not anti-Mormon hate, mudslinging BS stuff. It's truthful, objective research that there are like, look, guys, you need to look at this stuff. Please, look at this stuff. You need to take a look at this. Don't look at that. That's evil anti-Mormon literature. It tells the truth. Please, don't tell the truth. I mean, how crazy is this? So, just at least consider what I have said. I love you guys. I don't want to completely, bog you down with ridiculously long video, which I probably already have, but I love you guys. Please, please, please consider this stuff. Please. This is from my perspective a problem, and I think it causes problems. I know it causes problems, dramatic problems on all sorts of levels, psychologically, physically, even metaphysically. If there is a spiritual reality, this is going to have some serious spiritual consequences. Not that it's going to be an eternal consequence, I don't know that, but from what I have experienced, people who die with a particular mindset are stuck in some sort of astral realm that reflects that mindset, and it is very akin to watching people in dreams acting out dreams with very little. If you try to wake them up, they're very. It's just. I don't know what else to say. I love you guys. Please consider this. I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. Talk to all of you soon.